So what is the most versatile engine ever built? Right? A lot of people would say the small block Chevy right away, and the small block Chevy, an incredibly versatile motor. But it didn't quite have the reach that this thing did. This is the 215 Buick, the Fireball V8. So this was introduced in 1960 for the 1961 model year cars. This is 1950s General Motors engineering at its finest. And I mean, just looking at the exhaust manifold, there's a shorty header, the angled plug heads. This is like this was futuristic stuff at the time that they were designing it. But this thing had to run in a couple of different incarnations from 1960 until 2008. So that's 48 years, almost half a century. Continuous production all over the world of this engine. So the background on this, 1950s, we started getting a lot of European imports. So after the war, we went and we helped Europe get their act back together again, rebuild their factories and all. And part of the deal was to move some of their product to the United States. So that's when the Volkswagen Bugs started coming over. And, automakers in the 1950s saw that there was going to be a demand for small cars. And that's why, like for instance, the Plymouth Valiant was designed for that market. General Motors went a little bit different direction. And this is the
Y body.
The Y body.
Yeah.
So this is bigger than the Valiant, but not, so it's just typical, like, corporate positioning. But it's still, in its day, it was a compact car. And this is what they chose to power it with. So give them the rundown on this.
Okay. In 61, this was, well, actually the very first all-aluminum V8, cast aluminum V8.
Right.
It went into major production, and every single one of these that General Motors sold, they pretty much lost money on. The casting porosity issues and sleeves falling, and it was actually just a little bit too early for all aluminum cast blocks.
The manufacturing processes hadn't been
refined
yet, but the engineering was there.
Right. And if you think that this is ultimately what led to like your ZL1427.
Well, I mean, you go back. This was. Think about it. This was in 1962. This was the first all-aluminum turbocharged factory engine.
Right.
Was it 61? What was the first year for the turbo?
I'm not entirely sure what was the first year for a turbo, because that was an Oldsmobile.
Right, the Oldsmobile version of it, and this is actually the high-performance version of this engine. It's got the 4-valve carburetor, and it has this extra row of head bolts, and that was intended for the turbocharged application. This one wasn't a turbo motor. But so let's go year by year. So they start producing this in 1960.
Right.
Okay, 1961, it's this.
Right.
Okay, 1962.
62 is when they got the Power Pack model.
Okay, and that was the 4-barrel.
That was a 4-barrel carburetor, yeah.
Which is what this is. Mm-hmm. And also the turbocharged, the old Jetfire.
Right, the olds, they picked up the turbocharged with 4-barrel carburetor.
1963.
63, Power Pack then went to 200 horse.
64.
It became the 300. And then it was aluminum heads, aluminum intake manifold, cast iron block.
Cast iron block, okay. 65.
65, all cast iron motor. You still had the Power Pack model though, which was the 4-barrel. It was actually, the Buicks were all labeled in torque, right? So that's what people always screw up when they open the hood. They'll say, oh, a 465, I've never heard of one of those. Well, that's a 425 with 2 4-barrels, right? Okay. This one was called, you had the 2 versions, was the 310, and then you had the Power Pack model, which was the 355. So it's 355 foot-pounds of torque.
Okay.
But it's 300 cube.
Interesting. All right. Well, that was 65, 66.
Right. Same thing.
67.
67, that was the 340 was introduced, I think, at the later part of 66, and then carried into 67. But that's the only thing that happened. They raised the deck height on it and gave it a 385 stroke like the 350 Buick.
Okay. So 340, see, a lot of people never heard of the 340 Buick, but there you go. 68.
Became the 350 Buick. They actually changed the heads and intake manifold design. The block kind of remained the same. They had to actually move some of the lifter bores, okay, because they changed the valve arrangement. If you notice, this has the same port valve arrangement as a nail head. And they did that, and even the valve
It
covers
looks like a nail head.
meant to
Right,
look like a
it's
nail
beautiful.
head.
It's
Yeah.
just a little jewel.
A lot of people confuse this engine with the nail head, and this was actually kind of the intermediate between the nail head and the big block. That's what's weird. People don't understand.
Well, let's keep going because we still got a lot of ground to cover.
Oh, tons of ground. Yeah.
69,
69 remained the same. 68.
70,
70, they changed it from oil through the head
Oil through the push rod.
to oil through the push rod.
71,
71, they lowered the compression to 8.5.
72,
72, they went 8 to 1 and for 87 octane gas.
73,
73 got the big port exhaust valves and 2.5 inch exhaust manifold, or 2.25 inch exhaust manifold.
74,
74 EGR and HEI.
75,
75 remain the same.
76,
76, they pulled the windage tray off.
77,
Same.
78,
It was the same. Yeah.
79,
79, they put the windage tray back on.
80,
80 was the same. 79.
81.
81 was the same as previous 2 years and the end of the last year. Actually, you could have got it with computer control, but I have never seen one.
Okay, so 21 years as this engine evolving.
Correct. Yeah.
But that's not what a story is.
No, it actually gets interesting because there's so many side branches.
Okay, so now, at some point, Rover,
Right. Rover bought this in 64.
64,
64, they bought this exact engine. They were
the all-aluminum
the
version.
all aluminum variant.
Okay, and that was produced from 1965.
Well, I think the first year it arrived in a Rover vehicle was 67,
67, okay,
but it ran all the way through
2006.
the late great Rover. Is the last year of it was 2006. The newest versions of Rover are not the traditional.
So that's this engine in this carnation, right? Aluminum head, aluminum block, all aluminum,
Right.
In the 215 size, and it ran continuously for 46 years.
Pretty much. They did change the bore and the stroke, and they actually added 4-bolt mains, and they did the cross-bolted the mains. Yes.
Okay. So now this is also used by Triumph.
Triumph, yeah, and the TVR, which was the high-performance model.
And
Leyland P76, which was a car built for the Australian people,
okay,
was this engine. And then if you want to go down the high-performance road, you had this exact engine in Mickey Thompson's Indy car.
okay,
And then what was real neat about it was there was a stockpile of these that were the Oldsmobile version, the non-turbocharged Oldsmobile versions,
but with the extra head bolts.
with the extra head bolts.
Okay.
And they were found in Australia, and those guys picked them up and built the Repco Formula One V8 off of those.
Okay. All right. But see, there's still a whole other history of this thing to cover, right?
Right.
I'm telling you, this is an intense package. All right, so at the same time that they introduced this thing as a V8, they introduced it as a V6.
As a V6, yeah.
Now the V6 wasn't all aluminum, V6 was cast iron. But that was really the only functional difference between the two engines, just two different materials. So it starts off as the, what do they call it?
198? Oh, the Fireball V6.
The Fireball V6. And that's 1961,
Yeah, so 198, which grew to the 225.
right? And the 225 became the Jeep motor.
Right, yeah, it was actually sold to Jeep. Jeep ran it in like the Jeepsters and, well, it would have been like regular Jeeps
Okay.
through like, I would say early to mid 70s.
Okay.
And then General Motors bought it back as an economy motor.
And they reintroduced it in like around, what, 70?
It's like 77 or something.
77. So then it got a turbocharger,
Yep,
right? So that was, I believe it was 1978.
yeah, it's like 78.
So at that point it was a 231 cubic inch motor, and they were using it in their midsize and their full-size cars turbocharged. And then see, the problem with that, as a low-performance engine, the crankshaft design, the 90-degree crank, worked out fine. Because, there wasn't much stress. It vibrated a little bit, it shook a little bit, but it was like a happy shake, okay? But once you started actually leaning on these things, when they put the turbocharger on them, and then they started to shake themselves apart. So they went to a split throw crankshaft in what year?
Yep. Oh, well, that's 78, I think. 77, 78. They went to, they went from odd fire to even fire.
Okay.
So it had been maybe 75 that GM brought it back.
So continuing on now, they split the crank throws to smooth it out, and this ended up in the Grand National. Well, it was in a bunch of different turbocharged applications.
There's even a 4-barrel 252 cubic inch version of it that came in the full size.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Totally gutless. I remember those cars. But the point is, it was there. Okay, it didn't run if it fell out of a tree, but it was still a turbocharged 252 cubic inch engine. But the cars, you got to understand that these were 4,000-pound cars. All right. So then you ended up the ultimate performance incarnation of this was the intercooled turbocharged Grand National. So that was 77. Oh, the GNX. The GNX would be
87.
In 88.
The
No,
GNX was 87.
Okay.
And,
Right.
but then the story doesn't stop there.
It doesn't.
It keeps going.
Okay.
Just like this motor. So in 88, they shortened the deck height.
Okay.
They put a balancer shaft in it, and it became the 3800.
Wow, that's right. And now it gets mounted sideways in all sorts of different cars. And all they did with that is change the bolt pattern. So this has the regular BOP bolt pattern on the back of it, and they changed the bolt pattern on the back to meet up with the 60-degree V6s.
Right.
Right. And the hottest version of the 3800 was the supercharged, the Grand Prix, the GTP.
Yeah, I don't remember which year it was, but there was one that was the same horsepower and torque numbers as a Grand National.
Yeah.
Which I think was like 2002 or 3. But those are kind of lost on me. I've never really had the money to buy one of them suckers.
You know, we're not historians. We're just gearheads. We should have actually hit Wikipedia before we did this,
Yeah, maybe
right?
so. Yeah.
All right. So, but anyway, the production for this in the 3800 balance shaft version, the last year of that was 2008.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, you're talking about something that General Motors engineers sat down with slide rules, and there was no computer, there was no CAD, there was nothing like that. These were guys with thick glasses and pencils full of pockets, drawing this stuff out. And this thing ran from 1960 to 2008.
48 years.
48. So I can't even do math. 48 years, almost 50 years of continuous production. This was just, and I tell you, it's a jewel. It's just a beautiful. And what does it weigh?
This version is 320 pounds.
320 pounds, fully dressed.
Fully dressed, yeah.
Fully dressed. So, what are we going to do with this thing? That's what everybody wants to know. What are we going to do with
Well,
this thing?
and I know everybody didn't want me to hack up this car, but if they had seen how the car really was,
You're not going to hack it, though. Let's make this clear.
No. I'm not. I have to have a period correct 1967 Superstocker. So there's no tubs, there's no back halves, there's no mini tubs.
There's no roll cage, just a roll bar.
It gets a 4-point roll bar,
right.
And it has to have a stock style interior, and it has to be virtually street driven.
It can be returned to stock in an afternoon, is what he's saying. So it's not getting hacked up. It's okay. I wouldn't let him hack it up. I'd throw myself over the car. I'd think this falls all to me first, right? So yeah,
the interior though is just absolutely fragmented. There's nothing left.
But wait.
Okay.
We're talking about this motor. What are we doing with this motor? Because I want to do something with this.
Well, I don't know. To tell you the truth, I'd really like to put it in something neat. I thought an S10 would be cool.
Yeah,
right?
It would be very cool.
Because no one would ever expect it, and then put a T5 behind it and wind the sucker up.
It would be cool if we could put a turbocharger on it, duplicate the Jetfire motor.
I actually have a turbocharger from a 78 Turbo Regal.
I believe that's the same setup.
I don't know. It has a little foot on there. All we need is make is a steel plate with an opening and 3 holes.
All right. I think that's enough. We've more on this to come. I guarantee you. So that's it, right? Then every Wednesday night, join Dallas and I for a Wednesday night tech talk. We do that here in his palatial garage. It's so clean.
Yeah. Not as clean as your shop.
My new one.
Your new one.
The new one. All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.